had Hotmail. And I'm cringe, but I'm free, so I will tell you my handle. It was Lil Devil. Yeah, that's Lil, not little. So you know I'm really hip and chill. Now, the best part is, my parents didn't let us have internet until I was 16. So, yeah, they didn't believe in it. But I had to make that account on my friend's computer, just for it to sit dormant until my parents deemed the World Wide Web relevant. I remember being in the computer lab in the lockers area. Is there still a computer lab in the lockers area? No, okay. Well, there they taught us about email, and they broke down into parts. I immediately changed my desktop background to the Fendi oversized buckle bag in royal blue and white. And I was immediately met with suspicion. See, while we were being taught about email, our early 2000s instructors weren't totally aware of the ability to change a desktop background. So I narrowly avoided detention, but I did learn what BCC meant. So, by the time I was in undergrad, shout out Queen's Drama, we were all about Blackberries. And for our generation, it seemed like we had one new thing, and then the next new thing, and then the next new thing. So there was so much change, we weren't really clocking it. That is, until my friend acquired a first-generation iPhone. Ooh, yes. We all took a step back in awe. What was this, the Jetsons? Oh, FYI, the Jetsons was a show from the 60s that envisioned a future chock full of flying cars and robots. But we had never seen a phone like this before. We had iPods, they only played music. But this new hybrid, it did that and so much more. But I was a drama major. I didn't think the evolution of technology was really going to affect me. I was a thespian after all. It was the theater. What more could we ask of the art form? Well, as we now know, that art form can be broadcast, as it is tonight, to a much larger audience than we could have expected. This was also the start of creator-led art. So could you create your own piece? Could you produce it? Could you direct in it? Could you star in it? Even back in 2010, that was starting to look like the key to success. I have to be honest, I started feeling like my parents by the time I was auditioning for acting programs. Why couldn't things be more rigid, more straightforward? They were both doctors, and I considered myself an artist, but I was thinking like them, why do things keep changing? Why do I have to change? Why can't there be rules? So by the time I was accepted into an acting program, I rejected it. Being an actor has never been a guarantee, but this new wave of creator-led content, it had me questioning my abilities. But when I was in my last year at Queen's, I had started a fashion blog. And at the time, it was considered a bit radical because it featured everyday women. And at first, I called it La Mode Netiquette. But in the early Twitter days, I was told that my handle was pretty heavy, so I simplified it to I Wear Black. After a few months of publishing, it occurred to me. I was making content on a digital platform, and I was even using some basic coding in a way that made sense to me. So, starting and managing my own site leads me to fashion school. In all transparency, I was kind of mostly there because my parents wouldn't let me get a job until they were satisfied with what I had accomplished academically. Firstborn problems. At the time, this seemed a bit like a stopgap, something to study while I figured out the next step. Then, in our second term, we did a journalism course that focused on fashion. This is where things started to click for me, but it wasn't without its challenges, because now journalists were being asked to be multifaceted creators and more. Could you report your piece and then fully package it? Could you tell the story from an online lens as opposed to a broadcast one? It occurred to me, perhaps my smorgasbord of experience could prove itself useful. So I pursued a Master's of Journalism at UBC. And while I now owe my career to it, at the time I still wasn't sure. You know, I had spent so many years working on acting and fashion and creating my own blog. I wonder, am I seriously-fying myself up for something that maybe I wasn't fully passionate about? However, I do believe you must finish what you start. So even though I thought perhaps journalism was a little too serious and frankly maybe sad an endeavor for someone like myself, I stuck it out. One year, they taught us Final Cut. A few months later, they told us Final Cut was updated, and now we have to learn Premiere Pro. This happened over and over and over again with different software. I found myself feeling resentment again. Why do things keep changing? Can things please stop changing? Can we just slow down for a second so that I can get some work done? That was not the case. It felt like every time I was in class, we were throwing something out for something new. But little did I know that this crash course of a master's program was preparing me for a job that didn't fully exist yet. So as a reminder, I let go of being an actor, for being a blogger, for being a journalist, for being a fashion designer. There was a whole bunch of things, and it just wasn't clicking. Though, I will say, my PhD parents were relieved to at least have one kid at that point with a master's degree, so I guess that was something. But then I got my first major journalism internship at CBC's Q, which is an arts and music show. I felt like that blonde woman in the GIF with all the math equations flying in front of her face. All of a sudden, everything was in play. My days in theater, my days jumping from software to software, it all seemed useful. Fast forward to today. I am a digital, social, YouTube producer for CBC Kids. Did a psychic predict that I would get this job? Yes, but that's a talk for a different TEDx. The point of the matter is, the job I do today did not exist when people asked me what I wanted to do when I was 16. Now some things remain steadfast. I get to work with puppets. We still lionize Mr. Dress-Up. Kids can ask their parents who that is. And we still make content with a kid-first mandate. But the functions of my job didn't exist when I was your age. And technology, well, it's still moving at a breakneck pace. So my role grows and evolves with the algorithms and the platforms, and that doesn't even take into account the evolution that happens as our audiences grow older. So all of this to say that the skills you're working on could be surprisingly beneficial to your future career. You may not even know it yet. I think it's important to go with the flow and keep an open mind and look out for those opportunities. My creativity from my days in the theater, the problem-solving skills of starting my own blog, the adaptability of jumping from software to software, these are just some of the ways I was able to adapt to an ever-changing digital landscape. I never could have guessed any of that when I was